Do we have Eric?
I have invited the Racket Pros guys over onto the stage, and I think Kim is here, so we can kick off Kenzie.
Hi all. It's very early here, so I'm looking very tired. So thank you for the opportunity for us to sponsor this amazing summit. I don't know if you can everyone hear me? I'm looking in the, yeah, perfect. It's literally 4 a.m. here. We're a relatively new app that we've launched, and we're hoping to build our audience. And it's not just for squash, it's for all sports. It's for all racket sports. And I think we can just go to the video, and it's we're excited to get everyone's input. It's very early. We just released it in the end of December, and yeah, we're hoping to encourage collaboration, connection, and a fun way to interact about racket sports all in one spot. So we'll go right to that, if that's okay.
Hi, Kim. So sorry. I had some technical issues, so I think my intro was skipped. I'm just gonna go ahead and repeat what I was saying. So I was just introducing Racket Pros, and I was saying that it is the premier social media platform for racket sports enthusiasts, professionals, and influencers to connect, share, and build their brand. So thank you so much, Kim, for being here with us today, and we would love to hear more about your brand. Okay, so sorry, you guys. Today we're having a bit of technical issues. This is what COVID has done to us all. Next, we have a short video from our diamond sponsor, Ranked In and Sportcam. So let's watch the quick video, and then we will resume with. Thank you so much, Ranked In, for that video. Just wanted to say to also be sure to visit Sportage's booth for some exciting information about their new projects and upcoming work. And the co-founder of Sportage's, Furkan, will be sharing more about it at the end of the conference. So if you guys were with us here yesterday, I spoke a bit about my squash academy that I'm launching in Dubai, in the UAE. Unfortunately, for the sake of time, I won't go into many details about it, but just in a nutshell, I moved to Dubai about 3 years ago, and I've been studying the market closely ever since I moved here. And I saw a very obvious gap between, Dubai has so many resources, you have the squash courts, you have a lot of interest, a lot of people want to play, but there's a very big gap in between because there aren't any squash hubs or big squash communities that kind of can get people together to learn how to play squash or to even compete at a professional level. So I'm launching my squash academy here based in Jumeirah Beach Hotel on May 14th. And I promised you guys yesterday that we're going to play a quick game, so we're going to play it now. I promise it will only take 5 minutes. So basically the game is, I'm going to share my screen, and then you guys have to kind of guess two things. Number one, you have to guess the name of the academy, and number two, you have to guess what the logo means. And then the winners will get a full gear with the academy's logo, including a t-shirt, shorts, wristbands, headbands, socks, and even a personalized racket once that's out. So Zushan, can you please share your screen? And I'm gonna time for 1 minute once Zushan has the screen up, and then you guys can start guessing. No! Okay, can you go down? Okay, so we have I think we have the wrong presentation because this gives it all away. But anyway, I'm gonna come up with a different game on social media on Sportage's page. But just to explain to you guys, because this presentation gives it all away. Basically, I'm known in my squash game to dive to get the points. So, wait, sorry, I think the I think the presentation crashed. Okay, no worries. Someone already guessed it. Kim said the flying dove. Yes. And Jonathan Graham. Okay, so okay, Furkan is back on. So basically, because this is my known move, which is the dive, the move is very dynamic and it's my signature move. So how we came up with the logo is basically, Zushan, can you please go on the next slide? So we came up with specific patterns that were inspired from my move. Next slide, please. And these were all the kind of different patterns we came up with. And the final one that we picked, Zushan, can you go next? Amazing. So this was the final one. The logo basically represents the irregularity of my dive, and as well as the dynamics of my movements. So basically, a lot of people have guessed it alone. And the symbol of the logo basically is my body diving, but in a very subtle and simple and futuristic way. So this is kind of what it represents. Actually, Dave from the vice president at Hero, when I showed him this, he figured it was a K upside down, so that the logo was an upside down K. So it's open to different interpretations. But yeah, this is what the academy is going to be called. I'm so sorry that I give it away and I ruined the competition, but I will come up with a different game so that I can send you guys some gifts. Okay, so moving on. Thank you so much, Zushan, for that. Moving on. So I want to introduce our next speaker of today, MARKOS. He is the founder of interactiveSQUASH, and basically MARKOS KERN is also the founder of Fun with Balls, the company behind innovations like interactive squash, multi-ball, and limbic. And with his recent book, Quantum Leap, he is one of the global thought leaders of sports tech. MARKOS will discuss how squash can compete with other sports and entertainment in our time by embracing its biggest competition, technology. Also, MARKOS, I just want to say that interactive squash is 100% on my list. And as soon as I launch, I'm actually in touch with a lot of people in your team. I don't know if they told you, but yeah, that's the plan. Okay, amazing. Mm-hmm. So that's the plan, hopefully to bring it into Dubai permanently and not just temporarily. So yeah, we'll be in touch. Okay. Anyway, wonderful. Just so I don't take more of your time, go ahead. I'm so excited, and I'm sure we're all so excited to hear what you're going to have to say.
Wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. We might even have a little, if you're fast, you might even have your chance in getting it to Dubai in a very, very simple way at the end of my presentation. Hello, everybody. My name is MARKOS. Some of you I already know. I've been new to the squash world. We're now in the squash world for 5 years. I'm an outsider of the squash world. I'm not a former player. I haven't been in the federations, but I've made a lot of friends, and we're in touch with a lot of amazing people. And today I'm going to share a little bit what we are up to and why we are up to it and how you can actually benefit from that. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. Cool. I'm known for 2 or 3 things. I'm known to be very fast. I'm known to be a little bit hyperactive, and I'm known to be also a little bit too direct sometimes. So today I'm going to also poke into the hornet's nest at some point. So please excuse me if I step on your toes. I'm going to make it up later. Good. So far with interactive squash, we have more than 75,000 hours played by consumers. There's obviously probably 15,000 people that we had to play before we developed it. One person we met a lot is that kind of stereotype. And just to come up in the very front, and I'm going to come back to that at the very end of my presentation, no, you don't deserve to be in the Olympics right now. I know it's been a topic here. I know it's amazing people, it's amazing strategies, but you simply don't deserve it right now. And later, I will come back to this and tell you why I put this here. I'm going to take you through 3 stages. First, I'm going to tell you why we do what we do. And just like my previous speaker mentioned, this is a very important thing. We're here for a reason. If we were deciding to just make money with sports, we'd probably go somewhere completely else, and we wouldn't have started with squash. The second thing is we're going to show you how we do it. And the third thing is we're going to show you how it can benefit from you, and also share some tips how that might actually help you in things that are completely unrelated to interactive squash. Number 1, why are we here? It's very, very simple. Right now, we have a massive problem in the world that people are way, way, way too less active. Like, especially if you look at young people, the rate of sports being done, the rate of participation in all sports is rapidly declining. There's very obvious reasons to that, but it's at a drastic level, and we need to act because most people don't realize how bad it is, but it is really bad. The WHO, which we're in contact with, suggests that a normal person should do 150 minutes of sports, a minimum. The problem is the global population does 223 minutes average phone use. That sounds like, okay, cool. There might be some, okay, we can achieve that. The only bigger problem is one is per week, the other one is per day. So literally most of us around the world use about 1.5 times the amount of sports they should do per week, just staring at our phones, at our desktops, at our computer games, and so on. So now we have the right people, and this is a little bit the grumpy guy from the beginning, but now somebody stands up, but hell, squash is the healthiest sport in the world. Like, we can solve that problem. Well, there's one problem I always have with this term. It refers to one article from 2003. And this is basically one of the problems that the sport has per se. It's very narrowly focused on itself. And it tries to raise the flag, and it tries to go into the Olympics saying, like, but we're the healthiest sports in the world. By one article, that's almost 20 years ago. And my question that I want you to ask yourself during my presentation, is that the message that you want to send? Do you want to go into these conversations and say, hey, there's other cool stuff, but hey, somebody said 20 years ago, we are the healthiest sport. Just let that sink in. On planet Earth, 1 out of 5,000 plus people, might be way more than 5,000, but that's the thing, is a squash player. 1 out of 2 is a gamer. Gaming didn't exist 20 years ago. About the time when you were having that quote about Forbes saying squash is the healthiest sport, probably 1 out of 200 was a gamer. So it's always good to understand the challenges that you're facing in today's world. And as some of the previous speakers, also Zina, mentioned really, really nicely, there's a massive, massive need to reinvent the way that you communicate the sport, that you cater the sport, that you organize it, and how you actually also make it visible. This is basically the enemy that's about to fight. It's not other sports. It's distraction. And the way this really, really works nicely, this is why this new product is called the Limbic. It attracts your brain in a very, very simple way. It's highly attractive, and you can start with it really, really fast, and it gives you endorphins right away. Sports per se don't have that. To have a really, really good feeling about a sport, you need to train it. You need to invest first. That's something that we have to change. It's very simple. The limbic brain is basically, it's cutthroat logic down to payment. It's literally, do I do that? Do I get my endorphins? There's no way around it. There's no, yes, but you should do it because it's so healthy. And Forbes said, no, it's just like, if I spend half an hour with learning how to play squash, I have to sit in the bus, buy a racket, go to the center, talk with the probably old coach to show me how to. Whereas technology has a very, very easy entry. It's always in our hand. If you don't know these guys, you probably have big problems understanding the target audience that you need to fix in order to make the sport grow. This is the result. We see this in a lot of our daily work. A lot of facilities have massive struggles because they don't understand this discrepancy between the people that they try to attract and the product that they try to offer it and how they offer it. The result is revenue goes down, usage goes down, people just find other things to do, and obviously a lot of facilities are struggling. This is why we decided to do what we're doing, and this is basically the core essence of our work every day, because we very, very strongly believe in the sports facility being an amazing place, and not just to play sports, but for social interaction, for learning, for making friends, for learning discipline, for learning how to reach your goals. All these social elements, this sense of community comes together in a sports facility. If we don't fix what's wrong with sports facilities, we're losing a massive element of our society. Good. One thing that I always like, and this is a very, very good chart, this is how long it took for certain technologies to be adapted by 50 million users. I'm not going to read this to you, but it shows really, really quickly that in a time like today, there was never, ever so much possibility to have quick adaptation of anything, of a product or technology, within an insanely short time. The telephone took 75 years till 50 million users. Pokemon Go took 19 days. That's it, and don't forget it. The very simple thing that I also mentioned in my book is always think of a mind today is on steroids. It's literally, whereas in the old days, you would start to watch a movie, and maybe halfway through the movie, you'd be, I don't like this movie. You would still finish it. Today, if the movie is not triggering you within 1.5 minutes, you take something else. How do we compete with that? This is the second chapter of my presentation. There's a very, very strong philosophy behind all our products. And it goes to we are a soft and hardware company. So we go into code, we go into algorithms, AI, server-based structures, sensing technology. Forget all that. What we really, really do well is we have a very clear product philosophy to make the things that we develop work really, really well. First part of our philosophy in squash. Squash is not for squash players. I know this might sound strange for a couple of you, but bear with me and try to understand it. If I'm trying to sell squash from a squash player to a squash player, my audience is limited to one out of these 5,000 people. But the one thing that we always said from the very beginning, we need to market squash. We need to make squash attractive for everybody else, for people who like fishing, for people who like fast cars, for people who like computer games, for people who like to just sit together and be social, not to the squash player. And this is one of the big problems that we see in squash. It's very inward thinking. I'll get to that later. Second, broaden the experience. The simple product nowadays needs to be able to compete with Netflix, flying a drone, playing computer games, even getting an online dating profile. You need to be able to compete for that time. How we did it? By making a broad variety of cool applications that are super fast, super fun, super intense. I'm not going to make this a sales pitch for interactive squash. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the videos. If not, just go over, I'm not going to try to sell you the effect. I'm going to try to sell you the mission that's behind it. So watch the videos, you'll understand what I mean. Second, lower entry barriers. Entering a squash court shouldn't be about squash in the very first step. Make it the coolest place that somebody can think of. The one thing that we learned is invite people, let them do whatever they want. If they want to throw around a rubber frisbee in a squash court and shoot monsters, go for it. At some point, they're always going to go to the reception and ask for a racket because they're realizing, I need to be faster, I can't reach my points, I saw the other guy, he's really going fast. Let that thing be an intrinsic motivation to actually start engage with squash while you're at a squash court. But make sure that you have very low entry barriers. Come in, have some fun. You want to do a children's birthday party, not even think of a racket for it. It worked amazingly for the clubs that we upgraded, and it works amazingly to just have people that never considered playing squash actually rub shoulders with the sport and then have a very easy introduction. Third part, more audiences. When you lower the entry barrier, invite completely different people. I don't know, we always ask that, like when there's a squash center, it's like, how many people do you invite for incentives that don't have to do anything with squash? And people are like, but we're a squash center, we have squash trainers, we want to play squash. It's like, well, but you still need to rent out that place, preferably 10 to 15 hours a day, to be able to pay that squash trainer. So we are a big fan of just getting everybody in. Down there's an amazing work that Mark Veldkamp in Holland is doing. It's basically just renting out the squash court for wheelchair kids. And they're having their fun in the world. Down to the right, you see kids having a birthday party just by throwing stuff. And in the middle, you see Sean Moxham training kids with very, very strategic squash skills, but in a very fun way. And the most important thing is, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but I believe very, very strongly that if you want to make something really successful, make it a sustainable business. I'm not saying make it an aggressive business, make it a sustainable business. A squash center that's heavily relying on donations to survive won't work in the long run. A trainer who's giving out every second hour for free so he can at least give some hours but has problem paying his rent, he's not going to be pushing the sport forward. So and that's obviously something we do really well, we bring usage up to a max and we make it very, very profitable for operators, just offering a broader and obviously a little bit more expensive service. Good. A quick rundown what interactive squash really does. First of all, you can play a load of games. You can play games which are focused on fitness, on reaction, on cognitive training, on learning math, everything. You can play it with a racket, without a racket. It doesn't actually matter. And it's very important for us that it doesn't matter. Second of all, you can do very sophisticated training. The video that you see here, it's actually a very simple thing. Every kid gets told, go back to the tee, go back to the tee. We developed with M-Squash together a super cool app where kids are actually encouraged to spend more time in the tee. You see, as soon as the kids enter the tee, a counter starts counting. So you win 1 point for the rally, but you also win a second point for being more time on the tee than your opponent. And what does it do? It takes a very dull and very boring application that you normally have to learn, and it makes it a very desirable and very fun way to do it for hours, meaning you learn automatically the strategic skills. Then we have motion tracking. So what you see here is a girl doing ghosting. It's a 1-minute session. We're now also implementing something where you can actually see with PSA rallies if you can actually be as fast as this guy in that match with that opponent. It also puts out a lot of stats, and it shows you how far you've been running, and it shows you what else happened, and heat maps, and so on. Basically, everything that happens in this court is fully recorded, fully tracked, and you get all the data. Then we have the app. So normally if you go in, you just scan the QR code, then you're logged in. You get all that data on your side. This means you can participate in the leaderboards. For example, if you go to the figure 8 training, I think you will always see Sean Moxham, Sanne Veldkamp, and Simon Rösner battling for the top 3. And they're like at 800 shots or so. So you get a very, very nice form of community to actually check out how good are you and compare yourself to the rest of the world. And obviously, how many calories have you burned? How far did you run in that session? And so on. There's a lot of cool new updates coming soon. We're going to have payment soon, a booking system. Remote coaching is going to be a huge topic that we're going to be launching in 2021. So basically, you can have your coach you without even being present, just by sitting on his laptop. The other thing is obviously court admin, that's the operational side, has a lot of benefits. It's super, super cool for operators. You get a lot of data as well. You know how much this court has been used by which age group and so on. You can put sponsors on it. We have a lot of centers that just put a logo of a sponsor. This is another way that they earn some extra cash. You can even have incentives where we have birthday parties where kids' pictures are put up on the wall. And also you can watch Squash TV in the squash court as an application. Events, obviously everybody's seen what we did at the World Series finals in Dubai and Chicago. There's a lot of very, very cool applications, and it's a pretty big area also in sponsor related content. So there's going to be a couple of really, really, really cool updates that are coming soon. First of all, we've already announced our future, our eSquash League. This is a completely owned league that's based on a game that's a gamified version of squash. The cool thing is all these events can be created, organized, and managed without a single person actually needing to be present. Meaning you get a push notification, do you want to participate in the tournament? There's even prize money. You can then participate. The system is going to tell you who plays against who. There's either events with a referee or without, because the system can by now also automatically do the scoring. And it basically enables you to run a tournament on 24, 26, 48, whatever locations around the world in real time by just the club saying we're going to do an event. And there's obviously also going to be automatic scoring, but also a referee scoring that we're hoping to launch very, very soon. Good. Quick rundown. This is how an interactive squash court looks. I don't want to go too much into the detail because just like you mentioned before, most people should be pretty aware of us. And one thing that somebody said really, really nicely, which I wanted to share, is somebody we've been in contact for a year or so buying an interactive squash court. And he came back to us and saying, like, okay, any smart person that looks at you right now knows at some point they're going to switch over to an interactive court. The question is just when. So we're very relaxed. If you have questions, reach out to us. We're happy to walk you through. But normally it's a pretty simple no-brainer. But of course, you gotta have the cash. We are still a very small startup. We're now 22 people already, but we're still running on fumes. And unfortunately, we cannot give out these things for free. So here's a little bit of our financials to have you understand what it actually means for you as a club. First of all, normally you have a hardware for $33,500 and a subscription for $299. We had in the beginning a lifetime license, which is 13,500 euros. And you would think, like, who is insane enough to pay that amount of money? Well, a lot of people have, and it's very, very easy because the ROI and the money that you actually make with an interactive squash court is highly, highly interesting. So it is a big, big ticket, but obviously everybody, and this is always the easiest way that we recommend, is just talk with the people who have one. They're going to be pretty open. But about a year ago, we dropped the price for the interactive squash court to $29,500. You have to understand the hardware, and this is why there's a little star. We don't earn money with it. This is basically our production price. The hardware that we give to you is super, super, super high intensity. We give 5 years warranty. There's a 12,000 euro projector in it. No, 14,000 euro projector in it. So everything is actually just us providing this. So you have the thing. We only earn money with a monthly subscription. So far, obviously, we only earn money if there's 400 or 500 courts with a monthly subscription. So we dropped these prices already a year ago, and we introduced a light version. The light version is just as little as specs. You don't have the video streaming functionality because you can always stream from a court onto Facebook and so on. So we always already dropped that a year ago. Today, I'm very, very happy to announce that we've been optimizing a lot, and obviously sales are slowly improving, not as fast as without COVID. So we're very happy that we can drop this quite drastically a lot. First of all, there's no more lifetime subscription. We don't offer that anymore, but therefore we're going to be reducing the monthly subscription by $50. We've been reducing about $2,000 of the full version and more than 3,000 of the light version, bringing it down to 16,420. And since we very much like that this is the Squash Summit, I'm very happy for the team to actually prepare that. We like games. So we prepared something even more drastic. We know a lot of people have trouble coming back from COVID. So the first thing we're doing, we're offering an interactive squash tin. This is even a further step down, and without the big projector, without a lot of functionalities, but it gives you the same scoring, it gives you the same motion tracking, it gives you a lot of value, and you can obviously later upgrade once you make some money with that to actually get a good foot in the door, and it's below 10,000 euros, which is, we're basically spending money on top of that, but then again, we're in it for the long run. So now comes the big one. Like I said, we like games. So we said, okay, how can we actually get you guys back to COVID so without waiting too long? So we have a COVID back to court offer, which is you get the full interactive squash for 25K, you get the light for 15K. There's free installation all around the world, no questions asked, and free shipping. Plus you get a 50% off. This is literally, if you have the right court, obviously, if you have a court in the middle of nowhere in the outback of Australia, you're still not making a lot of money with it, probably more than with a normal squash court. But if you have a court in a city, this is a very, very easy ticket to make money. The reason we're offering this now is we know that a lot of these centers will have massive problems coming back from COVID. What we want to encourage is people actually coming back from COVID with a heavily improved product. And like I said, because we like games, there's going to be 2-3 different rules. We know a lot of you have been asking us, and there's already negotiations going for courts that are going to be installed and whatsoever. It's very simple. You need to go to our website. You need to sign up for the newsletter. On Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central European Time, we're going to be giving out the code for this offer you actually can use to get that discount. It's very simple. First sign gets the discount. There's 5 systems. If you are in negotiations now with Sid, Quentin, or all our other guys, I recommend that you be very, very closely paying attention to this. If you're looking to closing a deal within March, or the earlier the better, you might get that system. It's basically a lot of money that we put down the road to make sure that a lot of sensors have a better product to approach the new audience with a much improved product once COVID restrictions are lifted. And second, the reason why we have the grumpy guy in the beginning, and what we always encourage everybody to participate in. We know why we're in this game. We know what we want to do, and we've seen amazing results so far. We've met crazy cool people like Paul Walters, like Alex Goff, Lee Beachill, like everybody who welcomed us in the squash world, and we're like, okay, listen, we're open to innovation. What we see much more is people who are still not considering to change, who are like, let's just... The only thing that this sport is up for a new hype and a new spring of new, fresh people coming in and becoming something much more successful, bigger, larger, and obviously has a ticket to Olympic Games and so on, is if change is managed well. There is a generation change coming. There is a mindset change coming, and there's a gigantic universe of technology that is basically much more attractive than going on a wooden court and hitting a little rubber ball. We need to change that because it has everything for that change in the sport. And if you look at what we do with our courts, if you look at kids being like, okay, the center is going to close down in 2 hours, and it's like, no, can we play longer? This is our business. So we very, very much invite you. If you need any help, we're always there. If you have any questions, now is the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Markos. So yeah, let's take a couple of questions. Jocha, I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So from Simply Squash is asking you if it's possible to upgrade from light to full after purchasing.
Yes, it is. There's obviously a little gap. Like, it's not like you can upgrade for exactly the same remaining price. Buying a light and then upgrading later is always going to be a little bit more expensive than just buying it full right away. But that's the whole plan. Amazing.
We have another question here from Mira. How has the honest response to interactive squash been, especially with a lot of people unwilling? Oh, sorry, I lost the question. Because when someone asks another question, the whole chat goes down. So how has the honest response to interactive squash been, especially with a lot of people unwilling to accept change?
To be honest, we always see two things. There's always, we call it the immune system. People in the beginning are like, this is bullshit. Like, we don't want to have gaming, blah, 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 blah. Once they see it and once they realize it, most of these people actually become ambassadors of our thing. But there's always this start of negative approach to it. And that's always normal with any form of innovation. So if you're in the innovation business, nobody wants change in the beginning in existing structures. What we really, really like is the people who disliked us very much and then come back and it's like, okay, now I'm slowly getting it. But to be honest, call the people, download our app, check out where interactive squash courts are, call them. We're always happy if that happens without even us supervising it. Honest feedback is the best.
Amazing. Another question from Paul Selby. Has the price of interactive squash been a hurdle for it being accepted and installed in many?
Yes, most definitely. The price is a hurdle out of two reasons. Even though the ROI and the ways to actually earn your money back is visible, and we have a lot of data to support that, and you can call the others, it still means that you need that investment because we as a company cannot say, hey, here's 30,000 euros of hardware paid back slowly. There's leasing options. There's other options. Most of the companies either have the cash by donors or they go to banks. But that's something that we're working on very, very strongly to even get that entry barrier much lower.
Thank you so much, Markos, for your time today and for answering these questions. Are you going to be in the lounge after the session ends?
Yes, I can.
Okay, amazing. So for all our attendees for today, we do have an hour networking session after the conference ends. So please make sure you go and find Markos at his table. Do you know your table number?
No, I actually don't. I'm drastically unprepared normally. I'll find out.
Yeah, no worries. All of the speakers are placed from tables 31 to 42. So you can just find Markos in one of those tables.
Exactly. I'm going to be running around. A little question that I just saw, somebody's asking if that is the light. No, this is the home version, actually. That's called the Limbic. This is the thing that we're launching right now. So this is literally a 800 euro console that you can use for your home. It basically does the same thing, but that's for the next kind of presentation.
Thank you so much, Markos.
Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
Of course. Thank you. Okay, so before we head to our next session, I want to give a shout out to our diamond sponsors, Ranked In and Sportscam. And moving forward, if you guys are following Sportageist on social media, you would have read that we have a surprise speaker for our next session. Our next session is going to be conducted by Richard BICKERS, but we have a surprise speaker, and that is the man himself, Jethro Binns of Squash Skills and Squash Levels. So to give you a quick introduction about Richard is the founder and developer of Squash Levels. He has had a career in IT as a software architect for HP, and he is a squash enthusiast who is married with 2 children. Richard will discuss how it is important that the squash community pulls together and utilizes everybody's strengths to deliver the best in class, personalized user experiences to re-energize our sport via Squash Levels. Richard, are you ready?
Hi, yeah, I think I am. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And see me? All right, splendid. Well, thank you. Well, thanks for inviting us along. It's great to be here. I'll go straight to the slides. So my plan is that we'll show slides at our end. So the first thing is to attempt that. This should be good. Had me thinking I was ready. There we go, and we go full screen. And aha, there we go, right at the beginning. Right, so first question, can you see our title slide? Right, oh. There we go. You can. I'm just checking. Can you see? I think you can. Okay, right. Well, we'll start. Thank you very much for inviting us along. So today, this is really all about how we feel we can re-energize squash through a combination of technology and collaboration. What we're going to talk about is, unsurprisingly, we'll start about what technology there is in squash and what the benefits of collaboration are. Then we'll talk about how squash levels can help, and then I'll introduce Jethro Binns of Squash Skills fame, who can talk about the power of partnerships as we've been partnering between squash levels and squash skills, and then more about how we can really engage these communities, the squash communities across the globe, to really get their energy levels back up. So first of all, let's take a look at the technology in squash. Interesting enough, if you look at it, if you go and talk to a squash player and talk to them about the technology they use an awful lot of technology already. There's a whole list down the left-hand side there. Leagues, boxes, booking systems, mobile apps. They'll be interacting with membership systems, governing bodies, say in squash. Websites, there are online coaching systems, there's good old social media. If you look at the list of technologies just for a single player, it's really quite a lot. And then you take a step back and say, okay, well, let's have a look at the technology in use for everyone, for the clubs, the regions, NGBs, players across the globe. There's a huge amount. If you go and look out to see what's available, there are an awful lot of systems out there. And so we're already really well served. We've got a great choice. A lot of the systems are bespoke. They've been handcrafted for the exact need. There's a lot of them, most of them are really popular, and most are really very good. So we've got this really already this competitive landscape with a lot of really great functionality already available. On top of that, we've got these new technologies developing. We've just heard about interactive squash. There's video streaming, Racketware, Digitin's just been announced. It's coming out. There's a lot going on in terms of technology in the sport. So it's not really a technology problem. The question is, what is missing? And this is where collaboration comes in. All that technology should be working together. Most systems really work in isolation. That gives from a user experience standpoint, they're really silos. So we need to connect them up. We need to create a player-centric ecosystem, which is all joined up. It's personalized, engaging, and above all, easy. And it's easily done really based on simple standards. What we need is a common player ID, a global rating system, and some simple APIs and links between those systems. That's really all we need. How can squash levels help? Well, squash levels is really like the collaborative glue. It was created in 2015 and really focused on playing level chart stats and rankings. A lot of people on this call will be familiar with it. It's always been collaborative and always been complementary. What we do is to connect rather than compete. We don't offer event systems ourselves. What we do is we connect to those systems. We have 45 connections at the moment, actually 47, numbers going up all the time. And with those connections for these systems, we can provide consolidated and complete player histories. That's really important. If you go onto any system, it's usually got a section of your history. Well, we can combine those and consolidate them and provide complete player histories. And from there, we can provide the player level stats and rankings, personalized. And really important, I'll talk about this in a minute, it's the links back to the systems that provide us the data. And on top of that, we can also provide messaging as well. So there's particular messages we want to put out to represent those systems. Well, we can do that as well. This is all a great enabler for a cross-system experience. Now, here's an example of cross-system experience. It's really very simple. If you imagine you're on squash levels and you're looking at your result, imagine I'm Dave. I played this match against Kai. And it was a Northumbria County Close match. Doesn't matter too much, but with a single click from squash levels, I can go straight back to the tournament draw page. In this case, it's on League Master. That's a league system, a tournament system that was used to run this event. You can see that Dave Barnett, my name, is highlighted all the way down. It's completely personalized. I can see there's my result, and I've gone straight from squash levels straight to the league system itself, the tournament system. And if you look here, you'll see there's a head-to-head icon there. A single click from that icon takes you straight back to squash levels for the head-to-head analysis. And you can see there's a level charts for both players. And down here is the expected result, which has been calculated and estimated based on those levels. So within a couple of clicks, you've gone across these two system boundaries. Ever so easy. The whole thing is completely personalized, and the information you wanted is just at your fingertips. It's just a click away. And basically, if you use a player ID, you can click from anywhere to anywhere else in any of these systems and keep it personal. And once you do that, these systems are no longer silos. They are collaborating. The whole thing is personalized and easy. A few words on the algorithm. In order to go global, you need a really good global rating system. The squash level was always designed at that level. Just a few of the really important properties if you want it to go global. First off, it really needs to be inclusive at all levels from beginner to pro. It has to include absolutely everybody. It really needs to be mathematical. For that, I divide that into two parts, really. One is relative. You need to be able to compare players. Once you've done that, you can really you can do the kind of thing we did on that previous slide. You can predict results, which is it's a lot of fun. Going to tournament and looking at a couple of players and look at what that expected result would be. That's half the fun, really. But it also needs to be absolute. But the numbers really need to mean something. So, if say I'm a 1,000 level player, then everyone knows what that means. Above all, it needs to be accurate. For that, we must use points. You can't just use games alone. It's okay for 3-2, maybe even 3-1, but once you get to a 3-0, 3-0, you just can't tell. You just know that the one player played a lot better than the other. It's a huge range. You must use points, but once you've used points, you need to take behavioural modelling into account. And probably the best way of explaining that is the classic case of mismatched players. One guy playing another much better than his opponent. So what he does is he puts less effort in, he gives the guy a run around. So you've got these two quite different scenarios. You've got the better player, much less effort, playing at a low level. The other guy playing is absolute socks off. And if you don't model that, if you don't allow for that, and you dial it back in, then two things will happen. One is the better player gets dinged, his level goes down, he's not happy with that. So next time he mushes the opponent, which that's not the point at all. And or it just the levels will go wrong. He should not be coming down. He's better than that. So that's just one example of behavioural modelling. There's lots and lots of cases, but it's all about modelling and predicting effort in the various different scenarios. So you have to do that in a system which takes points into account. So that's what we do with squash levels. Calibration. This is really important for going global. We calibrate across both space and time. Space is really geographical. Clubs, regions, countries. So if I'm a 1,000 player in, say, the UK, then I know that I'm around the same standard as a 1,000 level player in Australia, other side of the world, but the number is the same. This is how we kind of form this global community, by having a consistent rating system. Couple of comments on time, though. This is great fun. If you can calibrate across time, and we can, and I'll tell you, it's hard. This is really hard part of the algorithm. You can do all sorts of wonderful things. And here's a really good example here. If you look at the time scale at the bottom here, you'll see it's a 20-year period. And we're looking at a couple of the greats. We've got Dave Palmer from the early 2000s up to Mohamed Shabagi, who's the top player now. These guys never really played in anger at the top of their game. But by looking at the level over time, we're calibrated across time, we're calibrated at all levels. It's a really interesting comparison, and it's great fun. You can go on a system and find all your favourite players back to about 2000 and see how they get on. Not just how good they got, but even the profile. How quickly did they go up and come down? It's fascinating stuff. But just to just bring you back down to earth, this is me. Not quite numbers like Dave Palmer and Shabagi, but this is me, and I got results go back to about 2007. I don't know if you can read that, but I got about 13 years of results there, and so I can see my whole playing career. Nothing magnificent, but I can see I was improved for a while, and I just beginning slowly declining, alas. But the results are there. My whole history there is consolidated from multiple systems, and that calibration across time is great fun. It's really good. Go back to where I was. The last point I make on the algorithm is it really needs to be dynamic. This is a tricky one because you don't want it going up and down like a yo-yo, but then again, you don't want it damped so that nothing really happens. You've got to get the balance right so that when you've played a game, you get your result and you get something out of it. If you played well, you go up a bit. If you didn't play so well, you go down a bit. And that's really where the motivation comes from. It's where the banter comes from. You're sitting in the bar, you've had your game, and all your mates are haranguing you for dropping 2 or 3%. Well, what do you want to do? You want to go back out next week, probably go back out tomorrow, have another game, get back out there. It's all about motivation, driving participation. And that's exactly what this does. When people start to use squash levels and they get the results in, they want to go back on court. They just want to keep going. The algorithm is not straightforward. I've hinted at it. We've been working on it for years. There's a great deal behind all the modelling, particularly the behavioural stuff. If you want to know more, we do have an FAQ on the site. So go visit our website, squashlevels.com, find the FAQ and have a look. There's a lot more about the algorithm there. I'm going to take a step back here, the big picture. This, to me, if you want to remember one slide, remember this one. This is really about how we can collaborate globally. So I've talked about, there's a lot of systems out there that are very good, a lot of good systems, but they all use their own player ID, so they're not really connected in any way. What we need to do globally is to use some sort of global player ID. We've got one, we've got Spin. So really, if every system could use Spin and map their own player ID to it, then the NGBs will use the same mapping. Now, every system knows who every player is. You know, already we're connected. If those results are then sent to squash levels, then everyone gets a consolidated, complete player history. They get their global player ratings based on level. And these really important links here, I showed you the example just before, but these are the links that help the users just simply go from system to system, personalized in that sort of very simple user journey. And it's these links that really join everything up with the user ID. So this is what gives you the one system user experience. And of course, if you've got all the results on one system, then it's really easy to generate global metrics. And so you can look at participation rates by country, by region, by club, all sorts of metrics there by consolidating the results. None of the functionality that here, this is all the great functionality talked about here. Clubs, leagues, booking systems, all that. This is not replicated here at all. This is about gathering and consolidating results, and then allowing these really simple links back to the providers of this functionality. It's a very simple but effective ecosystem, and it's using existing technologies. Zena talked about not reinventing wheels. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Let's collaborate, not attempt to reinvent. And on top of that, this is actually a proven architecture. This is pretty much how it works in the UK. We don't use Spin. What we do is we use the English Squash membership number. And so all these systems here, at least a lot of systems in the UK, connect to the English Squash system. They have a membership system, and they send their results over to squash levels with that membership number. So everyone's talking the English Squash membership number, and for that reason, we can then communicate. And that's how the example I showed you just before, that's how it works. That's how we know who everybody is. It works really well in the UK, and it's really not that hard to expand it globally, but we do need a global player ID, and probably Spin seems, would make perfect sense as a way to go. So remember this slide. This to me is all about the global collaboration. Squash Levels continues to evolve. We did focus early on with the ratings algorithm, consolidating histories and providing these all important cross-system links. Now our focus is on engagement. We're providing a social network for squash, we've got feeds, trophies such as win streaks, skills and fitness testing, especially valuable at the moment where a lot of people can't even get on court. Jethro will talk about that in a minute. Leaderboards, match reports, and a really nice feature to be able to auto-create communities. We'll talk a bit about communities, but the system can automatically work out, which communities you're in. It could be a club, it could be a region, it could be your teammates. You can auto-create these two communities, and once you've got communities, then you've got this social network up and running already. So all of this offers great opportunities to partner. So the theme of partnership, I'll introduce Jethro now from Squash Skills to talk about our partnership between levels and skills. Thank you, Jethro.
Thanks, Richard. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. So I want to just talk about, the power of partnership and talk back over the last couple of years of some of the work that we've been doing here at Squash Skills in conjunction with Squash Levels, and then really focus on the community element. So if we take a step back to January last year, January 2019, Richard and I sat down in a cafe in Bristol and wanted to discuss the kind of obvious synergy that exists between the two organizations. So fundamentally, you've got Squash Levels, which measures your playing level, and then you've got Squash Skills, which tells you how to improve your level. So it became very obvious that we should explore this relationship and then consider playing to our own strengths. So initially, we looked at ways that we could link the two platforms together. And what we did back in 2019 was explore the idea of linking testing results and then trying to understand if we could create a derived level. So Richard, if I can come on to the next slide. You can see here on the left what we created within the Squash Skills testing section that now sits within Squash Levels is 10 tests and 8 fitness tests. And what we're doing with the squash test specifically was that we mapped people's test results to a playing level. So this meant that for the 10 different tests that people could take covering all elements of the game, they would be able to understand their strengths and weaknesses. And then we did some really cool stuff about calculating this derived level. So if you were able to hit 30 figure-of-8 volleys and 10 consecutive drives off the back, well, we could give you an indication of your playing level, which was a really nice start. And then more recently, we've evolved that to start serving more relevant content based on your test results from the Squash Skills Library. So we're serving coaching content. If you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, there's no point in serving advanced coaching content to somebody who's just picked up a racket. So based on these scores, we were able to offer up advice based on the test results. So if somebody's got, been struggling with their backhand drop, well, here's a coaching video that's relevant to your level and will help you improve your backhand drop. Then we're able to go one step further again on top of that, and we're able to start serving solo practice sessions that were again relevant to that person's playing level. So this was just a really nice example of linking up the two systems, two best-in-class systems, and getting them working together to help serve the squash community better. So that was kind of where it all started, and then from there, hopefully some of you will have been on the new Squash Levels site. We've evolved it significantly over the last couple of years, and one of the things that's shone through is this idea of collaborating through communities and with communities. So Squash Levels always used to be about the individual. It was very much focused on the individual, about your players' results and where you sat in the rankings. Now, from there, what we've focused on doing is understanding how these different groups of players can fit together. So naturally, there will be groups of players that sit together. They might be teammates, they might be people who play in the same club within the same county, and then ultimately up at a national level as well. So people are bound together automatically through the results that come into the system. So we're able to create these micro communities within Squash Levels that allow people to interact with one another. And ultimately, we've now just created some admin capabilities for the people leading those communities, so whether that's clubs or counties, to start posting within their communities to the players who are in those subsequent communities. So essentially, we've created a social network for squash players now, and we think it's going to be very, very, very powerful. We've added features such as notifications, behavioral emails when updates go in. And there's a number of other features that sit within these communities that we're going to run through on a case-by-case basis now, just with some of the partners that we've been working with. But it's a really exciting development because these posts, these new pieces of news can go out into the community themselves, but then they get published to a player's feed, and then they're getting these notifications. So we're really offering up an opportunity to engage with squash players whilst they're thinking about squash, while they're thinking about their level, while they're checking their latest match results, whilst they're inputting test results. So we think this is going to be a very powerful tool now as we look to help squash bounce back over the next couple of years. And we think it's a real opportunity for sponsors as well. So, within a club, so there's a first team sponsor in the club, not only are they necessarily reliant on a bit of branding in the squash club, what they can do now is get sponsorship space within these digital communities when all the players within the clubs are checking their own rankings or checking their results. So I'd just like to touch on some of the specific examples of some of the collaboration we've been doing with different organisations over the last few months. So the first one is the Northwest Counties Squash League, which is the biggest squash league in the world, around the Manchester area here in the UK. One of the features that we're working on is the Player of the Week and the Player of the Month. And now the really nice thing about this feature is that it's not specifically about winning matches. It's just about improvement. It's celebrating improvement. It's celebrating success through performance. So you could actually lose a match, but if you're playing way above your station, then you get rewarded. So you can see here in the example, Leighton played 22.7% above his expected level. Therefore, he becomes, the player of the month, and that's celebrated within that community. And then it would also go out within the feed to his followers. So then we're also developing features such as the team of the week and the team of the month. So this is kind of fairly bespoke to North West Counties at this stage, but they wanted to create the best team based on number ones, number twos, number threes, number fours, and number fives in the league within that period. So we're developing the team of the week and team of the month, and then ultimately player of the season. And one of the core aims of this project is working alongside Joel there, who's the social media manager, to create talking points for them to be able to screen grab elements from squash levels and post it up on their Facebook channels, celebrate these wins, just create more digital touch points for the Northwest Counties community. So we've given them the admin posting rights, so they can get news out about coaching events going on, tournaments that might be going on in the region. But the players in that community are getting those notifications, and then behavioural emails are going out. So just creating more digital touch points for the Northwest Counties as we go into the new season. They're going to be using squash levels significantly as part of the 21-22 season. So another nice example of collaboration is the work we've been doing with the PSA. So many of you will have seen the power ratings. Again, that was designed to create more talking points for the comms team to dive into the latest results. It's a form guide. It's not meant to replace rankings. It's just a bit of fun that talks about what level of people playing at within certain rounds of events. So yeah, again, just another digital touch point. We're offering PSA in-feed advertising, so we've got banner space, they've got YouTube video space. So again, just connecting with that squash audience when they're thinking about squash within the Squash Levels platform. There's also some other nice features, such as the head-to-head match predictions. You're going into a semi-final of a tournament, and you want to see what's the likelihood of Mohamed El Shabagi beating Ali Farag. Well, there's a Squash Levels prediction, because the algorithm is in there, and it makes those predictions ahead of time. So again, just making lots of talking points alongside the PSA. And then once again, we've offered them the admin posting capabilities, so they can go in and get that news in front of their players. Onto the next slide, please, Richard. So the British Army is a really interesting one, again, that we've just been working with through the lockdown period. Obviously, players haven't been able to get on court, so we've developed a range of new fitness challenges that can be taken off court. So the real aim of this partnership is just to engage that squash community that can't get on the squash court within the British Army, creating leaderboards. So there's now celebrations of the top times of people running their 5Ks, and these leaderboards can be changed every month, partnering up with sponsors to deliver prizes and raffles for everybody that competes and puts in a result, or again celebrating the wins at the top. We're also doing the official Army rankings, which is nice. They're using squash levels to so when they're picking teams and seeding tournaments, it's all coming down to the squash levels algorithm. Once again, they've got the admin posting capabilities as well, so they can communicate with their members specifically. Finally, the England Squash Partnership. We offer a membership benefit to England Squash. So members of England Squash get this NGB level access to squash levels. So it gives a 3-match history, club rankings, and that's just a benefit to being an England Squash member. So it's a nice tangible benefit for the national governing body. When players sign up to England Squash, they can immediately log into Squash Levels, and they get this NGB premium membership. We also do some work with England Squash around membership activation. So as Richard alluded to earlier, we've got that connection, so we can understand who is an England Squash member, who is not activated, who is activated. And if players aren't activated, we can put that message in their feed and encourage them to do so, so they're reaping the rewards of the England Squash benefits. Finally, we did the World Squash Day competition last year with the Nick v Laura, which was the largest team match in the world, and that was a nice success, with over 1,000 matches going into the system, with people playing for either side. So these are just some examples of the way that we are collaborating with through the creation of communities within the Squash Levels platform. Richard, clap the next slide, please. And you know, that it's all about creating these digital touch points, creating talking points, and allowing communities of any size, from club, county, up to national government bodies, to brands, you know, to different organisations throughout the squash world, to create these digital touch points and be able to engage with squash players whilst thinking about the sport. Every single club, region, nation in the world has the opportunity to create a community. Many of them will be auto-generated if the results are coming into the squash level system. You know, we obviously have big ambitions over the next couple of years to expand and see squash levels adopted in many different countries around the world. It's obviously nicely established here in the UK, but it's, as Richard alluded to, it's all about collaboration. We want to work with existing organisations, and really it's just about connecting up and working alongside those competition management tools to get results into the system so that we can all benefit. I think there's a significant opportunity for increasing sponsorship opportunities. We need more money flowing into the sport. If we can offer sponsors of these communities this great digital visibility in the communities whilst people are thinking about squash, I think we all stand to win. And finally, I think the really nice thing about squash levels at the moment is that it's about celebrating improvement. It's not just winning. You know, it gives people a tangible feel for their current playing level. It changes. It's all the time. You know, it's truly dynamic. Whether you win or lose, you see where your level is going, and it's addictive. And I think, you know, we've got this real opportunity now through collaboration to do something really, really exciting over the next couple of years and help the sport bounce back. So that's all from me. I'm just going to hand back over to Richard to wrap up, but thanks for your time. Richard, you're on mute.
Richard, you're still on mute. Can you please unmute yourself? Perfect.
Gosh, did someone put me on mute? I didn't do it on purpose. Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, a quick recap. So, best-in-class technology is already available. You know, we don't need a massive reinventing wheel exercise here. There's a lot of really good stuff already out there. There's new technology being developed all the time. We just heard about some of that. It's a really good place to be. What we need to do is to work together, give the global squash community a unified experience. And to do that, we need to connect our systems together. We need global player ID. Well, we have Spin. That would be the natural starting point. Squash Levels is naturally collaborative. It does have the best global rating algorithm, and it builds communities. So this all gives great opportunities for the many different parties in the squash world to work together, all for the benefit of the players and our sport in general. And I would just say collaborative technology is the way to go. I made that up, but I think it's a great phrase. So let's work together. Let's re-energize our sport. And if you'd like to know more, we will be at table 37 between the breaks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think we have time for a couple of questions. So we have a question from Peter, who is a board member of the Irish Squash Federation. He's saying, "Hi, Richard. How do you manage data protection and privacy?"
Gosh, well, that's a good question. So in order to sign up to all these systems, you have to read the T's and C's. The systems themselves protect their private data. You take the data that's on Squash Levels, the only data you can actually see is already in the public domain. So we're not there's nothing sort of private being published, and anyone who signs up will accept that it's okay. If they sign up to a league system, that they will sign up to say it's okay for their results to come across the Squash Levels. So it's all fairly well protected. The data's looked after. It doesn't go anywhere. And the great thing about it is you can do so much of this without any personal data at all. If you really don't want to be seen, it can be a tricky bit, because if your results come in from a league system and you just don't want them to be on Squash Levels, then what you can do is either ask us, or we can basically withhold your name, and you just disappear. So yeah, it's all covered. It's a good question though.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have two questions from Jonathan. The first one is, does it cost money to get a spin ID? And the second one is, sorry, I lost it here. Is there a published API for squash levels?
Okay, right. I'll take them separately. So the spin is a property of the World Squash Federation. We have been in discussions with them. At the moment, spin, I believe, costs £15, and it gets you access to the international tournament. So that's fair enough. In order, for my view on this, in order for this to work, you need a free form. You need a free spin, and that just gets you the number. If you then want to go into an international tournament, then yes, you need to pay £15. But I personally believe that what we need is a very, very easy way, a free way to access spin. Get yourself your number, and from that number, all of this evolves. And the great thing is, once you've got such a thing, the membership system, say that the World Squash Federation could then record all the membership details. If you're a member of England Squash as well, that could be in there. So all of your membership information could all be in one place. So no, I think fundamentally the number should be free. But if services derive from it, you would probably need to pay for, and that then be a question for the World Squash Federation. But yeah, that's my hope. Gosh, what was the same question?
1 second. So the second one.
I can't ask you two questions. I forget the second one.
Is there a published API for squash levels?
Oh yes, there is. If you go onto the site, you'll find there is a link in the footer. It's a really, I mean, what I just describe it's a really simple API. You basically, the providing system just needs to provide a web page that is a text CSV output. So it's just commas, all the numbers. The result basically in numbers separated by commas. That's comma separated values as CSV. It's really simple. So every night, Squash Levels will basically pull that page, read in however many results have come in new, and then read them in. It's about the simplest possible interface. I call it an API, but really it's just a CSV, and it works really well. It's ever so easy to generate. The record we have so far is 3 hours for the developer of the source system. That was something, a record. Typically, it takes about a day to really put this interface together, and from then on, you're connected. You can go back and get all historic results, and then all of a sudden, all your history is on Squash Levels and calibrated. Yeah, it works really well.
Thank you so much. One more question. I can hear my echo. I don't know why. Okay. One more question. Does Squash Levels work on Android?
It does, because it's not an app. The way we've written it is it's a website. We've made it pretty dynamic, though. It's all written in JavaScript, but it runs dynamically on all the mobiles. So we created it once we did a rebranding back in we launched it 2020, just as the pandemic hit. But the new version of the website is very dynamic, and it's designed mobile first. So yes, it's a website, but if you run it on your phone, it behaves pretty much like an app. So yeah, we've not got different versions for different phones. It just works really well on all phones. Hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Richard, for your time and for your session. Will you be in the networking session after this conference?
Yes, we're at table 37. So once we're done with the session, I'll listen to Paul's update on Racketware, and then after that, we'll head over to table 37. So yeah, just come and join us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, so before I introduce our next speaker, I just want to remind you guys to visit the Sportage's booth for some exciting information about their new upcoming projects and upcoming work. And after the next session, one of the co-founders for KERN will be sharing a lot more information about this just before the networking session. So our next and final speaker of the conference is Paul MELLOR. He is the CEO of Racketware. And with a first-class honors degree in electronic engineering and a PhD in computer science, Paul spent his early career doing research at HP Labs. Now he is the founder of Racketware. He specializes in sensor fusion, inertial navigation, and machine learning. Through this talk, Paul will be discussing the ways in which technology can be used to improve the following aspects in squash. So Paul is with us today. Paul, you specialize in so many difficult things that I can't even pronounce them.
Okay, hi everybody. So yes, I run a little company called Racketware. So we make these things. These are sensors that clip on the end of your squash racket. They're motion sensors, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them today. Let me just share my slides. Okay, hopefully you can see those. Okay, so my title of my pitch is Smarter Squash for Smarter World. We'll be looking at this motion sensing technology and kind of what it can do for squash. In particular, focusing on things like how it can help with participation in the sport, how it could help with fan engagement, of course, what it means for coaches and clubs, and last but very importantly, what this kind of technology can do for players themselves to help them improve their own performance. Okay, so first slide, just a kind of introduction to the technology. What is motion sensing? So you've seen the little sensor. It's pretty small and light. You don't really notice it's there. It clips onto the end of your existing squash racket. And then basically, as you get on court and start playing, either a match or a practice session, whatever you're doing, it tracks all the movement of the racket as you play. So it's working at about 600 times a second, so it goes very fast. It sees every detail of every movement you make with the racket. This tracks the movement both of the player, as you as a player move around the court, and also the motion of the racket you make, obviously, as you make a swing and as you hit the ball, it's tracking all that. So pretty much everything you do while you're on court is tracked by the racket. We got these things in there called gyros, accelerometers. They track rotations and accelerations and stuff. And all that information is then collected up, and it's fed by Bluetooth wirelessly over to your phone. There's a smartphone app that we have on the phone. And that basically takes all this data. It's just those numbers basically that comes off the sensor, and it's got to turn them into something useful. So there's a bunch of artificial intelligence routines that we've developed, and they crunch all the numbers and turn all that stuff into things that are useful to squash players to learn about, so that we can give you match stats, performance feedback, and even now starting to give some kind of basic coaching advice. So we basically find all the shots you play, the forehands, the backhands, drops, drives, lobs. We look at your swing, the preparation, all the different parts of your swing, all the match statistics, the things like your warm-up, your games, and so on. All that's kind of analyzed and presented back through the app. So that's kind of the essence of motion tracking technology that we've developed. So now just wanted to touch on how that can affect the game. Starting with participation. So I think we've heard a similar story a number of times now, but a lot of people have seen, I'm sure the picture in the top left here, young people are very focused on their smartphones and their online lives. I think to many people of that generation, you know, their online life is as important, maybe even more important than their real life. The social media connection, sharing, interacting, that all happens through their online world. And of course, we'd love to get the picture on the bottom right. We want to get people on court, playing squash, getting fit, getting good exercise, feeling good, learning skills, and as well as producing the next generation of world champions and so on. So we'd like to get squash, we'd like to get people, you know, busy playing squash, but to make that happen, we feel there's got to be a two-way process. We feel squash has got to become part of the online world among the younger people. If you can't get squash into their online environment, then you've got a barrier to having people engage with it. As soon as you can put squash onto the person's smartphone, as soon as what they do in the squash world is part of their online life, and they can share and interact with it, then you're making it much easier for them, much more natural for them, and a much bigger part of their normal existence. So we think it's kind of critical to get people who are playing the sport to have to put that sport into the online life of those people. So this kind of made me laugh, actually, just to nail the point. I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and it was his daughter, actually, who's a big runner. And she said this, she said, if I haven't got my phone, it's not worth running. It's just wasted effort. So she uses an app called Strava. It's a very big app now, popular. I think they're $1 billion company. They basically track your runs and let you share those runs with other people so they can see them. And, you know, there was this concept that if you run without having your phone, if it's not going on to Strava, it's just wasted effort. I thought that was a really telling comment that, you know, it's almost like the exercise has become almost second place to the kind of concept of capturing what you've done on your phone and then being able to share it with your friends to see how your calories have built up this week, this month, all the little challenges and so on that you get involved with. They've really digitized the whole concept of running and that particular sport to the point that, yeah, if you've not got your phone, it's not worth running. I thought that was just a very telling point. So this is kind of what we do. So in our Squash app, you can see all your matches and practice sessions listed in your feed. The summaries there, but the key point is we're adding social media interaction features now. So that after you played a match, you don't have to do anything. All the data is captured automatically by your sensor. Up comes the data. You can then follow other players who you like. You can share your matches with those players. They can see what you're doing. You can see what they're doing. You can comment on people's matches. You can like, thumbs up, and so on. That putting those kind of social media interactions into the app and bringing them to the world of squash, I think will be a big factor in helping, you know, increase participation amongst younger people. Yeah. So next is fan engagement. What can motion tech do for fan engagement? Well, I think we've all seen the excellent Squash TV, probably most people have. Fantastic service, brings squash matches to a million, well, lots of people all over the world. But there's one thing that I think is kind of conspicuous by its absence, and that is there's no stats. Every sport these days that's broadcast on TV has, of course, all these stats that pop up in between matches and so on. And we don't see them on Squash TV. We'd love to see them. If we imagine a world where people have squash sensors attached to their rackets, they play in tournaments, we could get live stats up on all the matches. So I've done some kind of examples here. You know, somebody hits a hard shot, you get the stats coming up. Hey, racket head speed, 34 meters a second. That's the third hardest shot of the match. Somebody hits a nice drop shot, cuts it in, gets a rolling nick, whatever. A cut angle 21 degrees, top 12%, you know. Maybe somebody's coming under pressure, starting to lose it a little bit. Racket prep's down 58%. That's quite late. That's not very good. Or time between shots, 2.86 seconds. They're under time pressure. You know, rally pace, 18.5 shots a minute. Shots a second, it says. It should say shots per minute. That would be a fast pace if it was 18 shots a second. Anyway, yeah, 18.5 shots a minute. That's a fast-paced rally, top 17% of rallies played. You know, putting some kind of stats up like that just gives the commentator stuff to talk about, gives the fans a better idea what's going on, and, you know, it's been pretty successful in most other broadcast sports. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about how motion tech can affect coaching and clubs. Well, this is a big question, I think. If you're thinking about a coach on court with a student, the student's got a sensor on the racket, we've got loads of interesting data coming off the sensor. How is a coach going to use that in their coaching session with that student? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know yet. We've got lots of people using sensors now, but we haven't engaged with coaches to the level that we've started to understand in any great detail how to put this kind of data into the coaching process. We don't see it as, and we don't want it to be seen as a kind of competitive system. It's not sensor versus coach. A coach is always going to have, a very different angle to the process than a sensor does. But we do think that sensor data could enhance the whole coaching experience and support the whole coaching process. So we'd really like to work more closely with some coaches to understand how we could put sensor data into the whole process of coaching. So that's a kind of question and a challenge out to the coaches who are listening in. If you're interested, do come and get in touch. If we look forward, though, we kind of imagine a world in Racketware where this technology is ubiquitous. Technology always gets cheaper, faster, better, stronger. We can imagine a world in the not too distant future, let's hope, where pretty much every racket has a sensor either attached to it or built in, and it'll be strange to people buying rackets. The old days where, they didn't have any sensors, they weren't online. That would be a strange concept in hopefully not too distant future. So if we think about that world where sensors are a bit more ubiquitous, then as a coach, another aspect to this kind of technology is having a feed of all your students. So imagine you're a coach, you've got your laptop or your tablet, your students have got sensors on the rackets. You can automatically get a feed of data from all your students, straight to your tablet without any manual intervention. It's just there. So, you've got your list of juniors there on the screen. You've got the time on court, how much time they're spending on court, how many shots they're hitting. You can look at individual matches or practice sessions that they've had. You can see what kind of activities they've been undertaking. You can understand what they've been doing in between coaching sessions rather than just when you were there. You've got concepts like just setting them challenges or things to achieve, the goals that they've got to achieve. Please go off and practice, do 300 backhand drops or something before the next session. And you can look at the kind of scores to get, the consistency, all this kind of data that we can get from the sensor. As a coach, you could have that collated and use that as part of your coaching program. And similarly, bottom right here, we've kind of got an image of a TV screen up. A lot of clubs have big screens. So we can imagine sensor data, people playing on court, just getting sensor data automatically sent to the screen. But also more fun stuff for clubs like, I think Jato talked about some of these, similar kind of concept for us. Clubs could put challenges up there. Who can just spend the most time on court this week or this month? Who can hit the most number of shots or the fastest backhand or get the greatest consistency of drop or, whatever little challenges and so on they wanted to put up. So, yeah, I think if we look at the coaching and club world, we can imagine all this performance data that's automatically collected from these kind of motion tracking sensors feeding into a more digitized coaching and club management world. That's the kind of picture we have in our minds. Player performance. Last but not least, how can this kind of tech help individual players improve? Well, there's been lots of studies on this kind of stuff. Research has shown pretty consistently that if you've got objective data, and that's the key word there, objective. It's great to have subjective data to ask the players how they feel about the match, how they think they did, and the coaches. But if you've got objective data from sensors that don't, that are not subjective, that is very important. And if you can deliver objective data to people in a timely manner, that's great for helping players improve. So a timely manner, again, is very important. If it's a couple of days, if you've recorded a video of a match and you've looked through it, and pulled out some highlights and you look a few days later, because of that delay, it can be less effective than being able to sit down and learn lessons or look at stuff or get feedback immediately after you finish playing, or if you're on court, you know, as you're hitting the ball and as you're doing your practice. So this kind of data can really be effective, and we think, you know, the kind of motion sensing tech, because it looks very quick and in very great detail, can play a big role here. So we've got kind of some app features. These are things we've been able to build already into our app. I'd say we've just scratched the surface, if I'm honest. I'd say there's so many more features we could build, so many more things we could do. We're all keen squash players ourselves. We've got loads of ideas for things to add. So there's lots of places where I think this tech can really help the game and can help players improve. But I'll just mention a couple of the ones that we've got in the app at the moment. So we've got, so one thing about getting timely feedback, we've got audio output, which is really cool, actually. So if you're doing a practice session and you're on court, then you can get feedback directly in your ear through your headphones, you know, spoken audio feedback. So every time you hit the ball, we've got 17 different stats that we look at for a swing, you know, starting from the racket prep, loading, head drop, you know, through to the impact and the follow through. And you can get any of those different stats tracked and given to you as audio feedback. So you just hit the ball, and it says, you know, gives you the feedback directly. You hit next shot, get the feedback. So that immediate feedback really helps you get information about your swing, excuse me, and can help you improve. We also got some match stats. So obviously, if you're playing a match, we track the whole match and then break it down into rallies, games, give you a bunch of feedback about how you've got on, including a great feature for us because of squash, because of the scoring system, is the winners and losers. Because if you can figure out who served and whether you served or received, then you know whether you won or lost the last point. Excuse me. And by looking at the last point, then if you look at the last shot of the last point, you can figure out whether that shot was a winner or a loser. And then if you sum all those winners and losers up over your entire match, you can start to get some statistics out about your winning and losing shots, which is quite nice. Are they forehands, backhands? Are they short shots, long shots? So we get some nice information about that. We also do these 17 different stats from your swing that you can look at, and we can do a nice compare to pro. So we've got some pros hitting different types of shots, and you can see the kind of stats they're getting from their swing and compare those to your own swing. And that gives you a view of you know, how you're getting on and how you compare to the pros and which bits of your swing you need to improve. There's some stuff like goals and stuff to keep you motivated and coming back at a set of monthly goals. Especially younger people are very familiar with this way of working, having challenges and goals to achieve, next level. So that kind of always keeps people engaged. And the final thing I just wanted to mention was we've just started to do this thing called the guide, which is looking at your kind of accuracy scores in all the different shots that we work with. We've got 20 different shot types. And figuring out a guide you through a practice session in terms of looking at your shot and looking at your swing and picking the best things for you to work on, and then trying to base its suggestions on how well you're doing and whether you're improving or staying the same and so on, to guide you through a practice session in a way that makes sense for you. So those are all the things that I think we've managed to get out of Motion Tech so far, but we're obviously, like I say, adding a lot more. Finally, I wanted to echo, I think, Richard's point from Squash Levels. We totally agree. You know, the kind of performance data we can get from a Racketware sensor, we think it's fantastic, obviously, but it's just one part of a whole ecosystem of people who have apps and websites and solutions in this area, from tournament management, player ranking, court booking, all the things we've heard about. We want to play our role in all that. We can automatically generate large amounts of data and feed it into many of these systems. So we're keen to play our part in providing an integrated and seamless experience for squash players of the world. Okay, that's me.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much for your time. We have a couple of interesting questions, so I'm just going to pick a few for you to answer. So we have a question from Patrick Osborne from WSF, and he is asking you, so he's saying a single Racketware sensor costs over $200 about the cost of 2 good squash rackets. Is that an accessible price point?
The more we sell, the cheaper we'll be able to make them. We only did a relatively small build the first time round, and with electronics things, you know, the more you build, the cheaper you can make them. So we're hoping if we get more traction now, it's just how to sell more and come out of COVID, that we'll be able to get the price down considerably. What I would say, though, is that when we think about the pricing, we tend to try and compare the price not to the price of a racket, but to the price of coaching. It's probably easier to a more direct comparison to think about the price of a sensor to the price you pay for coaching. You know, if you're paying £30-40 an hour for coaching, then one sensor is, you know, 3-4 hours worth of coaching, but a sensor will be tracking and looking at all your games and practices for the rest of your life. So I think it's kind of an investment. Plus, I would say we are working very hard, you know, to bring out new features, and all the new features you get on the app every month. We bring out a new release. They're all for free. So once you've bought the sensor, you've got a lifetime of hopefully new and brilliant things.
Thank you. Next question by Eric. He is a data scientist and a squash coach, and he's asking you. So he's saying, Paul, you mentioned that the sensor collects 600 data points per second. Is the user/coach able to access this raw sensor data, perhaps via an API?
Well, not today, but we do obviously have all the data available, so we'd be open to look at sharing it with people that would find it interesting. We don't send all the data from the sensor over to the phone, it'd be too big, but we pull out lots of interesting data from the sensor, so we'd be happy to talk about opening that up to people, yeah. If you want to chat in the room, I think I'll be in the little lobby place after, so if somebody wants to come and chat, then that'd be great.
For sure. So another question by Harry, he's saying, are there any pro players using racket sensors?
Not at the moment that we know of. Well, there may be. We don't track them, to be honest, whether they're pro players or not. But I'm not aware specifically of any pro players that are using it, but there may be. But we're hopefully going to change that as we move forward, because as things pick up now, the rest of after COVID this year, we're hoping to have get the Racketware sensor out a little bit more into the community and get more people using it.
Perfect. I think we have time for one more question. So this is one from Lewis. He's asking, does the product have a warranty, and for how many years?
Yeah, well, it's an electronic product, so we give a year's warranty, return to factory. If there's a problem with it, just send it back and we will replace it for you, no problem.
Thank you so much, Paul. As Paul mentioned, he will be in the networking section in the lounge, so feel free to go if you want to ask him more questions or find out more about his products. Thank you again so much, Paul, for your time and for your session and presenting this to us. Okay, so next we have a short video from PSA. So let's watch the video and then we will resume with
On the court,
we are rivals.
But off the court,
we are one.
كلنا واحد.
Kita jaga kita.
Okay, so just before I introduce the co-founder of Sportages, I just want to remind everyone to please make sure you donate to the PSA Foundation following the video we just watched. I mentioned this at the beginning of the conference, and Adriana, the manager of the PSA Foundation, has also jumped in the middle of the conference to talk more about the We Are One fundraiser. I believe the link is in the comment section, but if it's not, Zushan or Furkan will put it there for you guys. As we mentioned, anything would help, even if you donate $10 or even $20 each. It would be super helpful and beneficial to all the PSA players who have been drastically affected by the pandemic. And due to the suspension of the Professional Squash Association and all the tournaments during the pandemic, they haven't been able to cover their basic needs and their basic bills. So please make sure you donate. Even if it's something small, it would really make a difference. Thank you. Okay, next. So I want to introduce Furkan. Furkan is one of the co-founders of Sportages. So he is behind this amazing and very insightful conference. And he's basically going to talk about Sportages' upcoming work, upcoming projects, and I want to know what he thinks about the summit. So, Furkan, are you on?
Absolutely. Can you hear me perfectly?
Yes.
All right. So thank you, Kenzie. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank all the attendees, speakers, sponsors, and everyone else who helped us make this possible. And obviously, rest of the Sportages team, so Zushan and all our other team members who worked day and night to get this over the line. And not to forget our hosting partners, AirMeet, who have made this wonderful platform that has allowed us to engage and communicate over these 2 days from the comfort of our homes. Sports in general has always entertained people. And amid this pandemic, we are now unfortunately seeing a rise in public opinion that sport should not be a priority, and we absolutely disagree. Now is the time that is most crucial for sports and the squash community to come even closer together and change that narrative. It is quite powerful to see all of us here in one platform at the same time discussing all things squash, which is a testament to the fact that squash is not a dying sport. It is truly alive and well. And we would like to assure you that this is not the last, but one of the very first steps towards our commitment to this powerful sport. Last but not the least, on behalf of Sportages, I would like to announce that we are pleased to be taking our next step into the world of sports media consultancy for athletes and organizations alike, to assist them with areas such as social media, marketing, branding, design, events, and all of those things. So if you're interested, you can visit the arena and leave your emails in the Sportages booth. But most importantly, we hope you all had a great time, and we would love to hear your feedback, which you can send to hello@thesquashsummit.com. We encourage you to visit our amazing sponsors in the arena. You can also leave your emails by clicking on the register interest button in each booth. Without taking much more of your time, we would like to say thank you once again, and feel free to keep networking in the arena and lounge areas. And we will also be available over there to talk. With much love, Sportages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Furkan, for this. Before we wrap up, I just want to, again, one more time, thank our sponsors for making this event happen and for participating. Thank you so much for our diamond sponsors, Ranked In and Sportcam, our platinum sponsors, MELLOR Sports, Magnus Sports, Racket Pros, and Reacher. And finally, our gold sponsors, Squash Players App, Dynamic 7 Sports, Coop, and Game Day. Thank you so much for this amazing summit. It has been really good and educative 2 days. Educational, I mean. We now have a 1-hour networking session. So please, everyone, if you're interested, go into the lounge. Again, you will find the Sportages booth. You will find all the sponsors' booth as well. And you can also speak to the speakers who are all between tables 31 and 42. Thank you so much.